Well, a major roadblock to a deal in the USMCA. Over the weekend, Mexican officials say that a provision added by the Democrats is a non-starter in this deal. Now, this is on the heels of President Trump's effort to lock up phase one of the China deal. Where do we stand on both trade issues? Let's bring in Heritage Foundation's Vice President of National Security and Foreign Policy, James Carafano. James, good morning.
Good to be with you.
Let's start with these comments from this Mexican official. Basically, he is saying there is no way that they are going to allow inspectors on the Mexican soil. These are labor inspections that has been put into the deal. This is Democratic language. This is Nancy Pelosi language that was added, and this could be a big issue. What's your take?
Well, as I understand, there's some latitude in how that provision would be implemented. So my guess actually is this is going to blow over and just be a speed bump.
Good. Okay. That's good to hear. Now, we obviously got to get ratification here. But the other big story besides USMCA, and I think it was a big week for the president. On the business side, he had a lot of wins last week. China in particular. There's some concern with China that they didn't put in writing the $50 billion in agricultural purchases. And Chuck Schumer coming out of the weekend saying that President Trump sold out to the Chinese. Phase one deal, though, the markets are celebrating. From a policy perspective, should we be celebrating?
Well, I think it's a mixed thing. It's like the first battle of Bull Run. This confrontation between the United States and China is far from over. On the plus side, the president has gotten the Chinese attention. I think that's remarkable. We're going to see $100 billion in new business. That's good. And I think most importantly, companies are starting to rethink doing business with China and doing business in China. So we've seen diversification of supply chains and people thinking different risk assessments about it. So all that's to the positive. On the other hand, it's not a cost-free trade deal. We had to pay for tariffs. We had to bail out farmers, and I don't think it's a sustainable strategy over time. And we haven't addressed the big issues like IP theft. So it's the first battle in a long-running thing, but I think in the short term, it's good news for the administration.
Well, Robert Lighthizer was on CBS's Sunday Morning Show, and he talked about this, and he said, phase one deal, it is totally, quote, done. And he says that U.S. exports to China are going to double over the next couple of years. Lighthizer's really a big voice in this. He's the one that's really digging into the details of this deal with the Chinese.
Right. And I think, the tariff, a lot of us disputed whether a lot of the tariffs were legally appropriate in the authorities that they took. But it's not a sustainable strategy over time. We have a growing economy, and that's great. And so tariffs are bearable, and we pay a cost for them in the price we pay for goods. But it's resetting this relationship with China and fundamentally changing Chinese behavior. And this is the first step in that. But we've got to stop. We have to address the IP issues. We have to address the predatory practices, the unfair market access issues. So we've got a long way to go. But I think the administration has definitely got China's attention. And the fact that Chinese came to the table and did a deal, and then they don't even want all the details of the deal to come out, that shows that they did not come out of this in a strong position,
all right,
I think.
Real quick, I don't have a lot of time, but I do want you to listen real quick to Larry Kudlow talking to Marie Bartiromo yesterday.
There's a large IP chapter in this deal, and there's also a large forced technology transfer chapter in this deal. I don't think we know enough about these new Chinese rules, and we'll have to look at that. And by the way, if they do violate, then of course we will take action. That's part of the enforcement mechanism in the deal.
Quick reaction, James.
Well, one, we haven't seen the deal, so we don't know any of that. And I think, again, in the short term, I think the benefit is, I think markets will be calm. I think it's stability in the short term. I think that's good for the president, good for the economy. But I think the administration is clear-eyed in this. If you look at this, there's not an expectation that China is just going to roll over in the future. So there are tariff threats, there are other rollback threats, and like I said, I think it's the first step in a long confrontation. It's long overdue starting down this path.
James Carafano, thank you as always for your perspective on all of this. Big week for the president last week. Thank you, sir.